Hello, welcome to the Automated Tester. I'm your host, Jonathan Rasmussen. Not everyone knows this, but the browser can do a lot more than check email and watch funny cat videos. In this video, we're going to take a look at some of the tools built right into your browser that make testing your CSS selectors simple and easy. So let's begin. Pretty much all browsers today come with something called developer tools. These tools, built right into your browser, help developers do everything from find and test JavaScript errors to general troubleshooting and debugging in their applications. But not only are these tools great for development, they're also really handy for testing. Let's take a look at how. Here's a login page that we would like to write an automated UI test for. It's got your standard username, password, sign-in button. But before we can automate it, we need to select each of these page elements with a CSS selector. That means looking at the underlying HTML. One way to do that is to right-click on the web page and go View Page Source. View Page Source is handy in that it shows you the underlying HTML for the web page you were looking at. Developers use this all the time to see how their web pages are built. And we can use it to see what the underlying structure for the web pages are that we want to automate. In our case, we're interested in these two fields right here, session email, session password, along with the sign-in button. Now we could write our test iteratively, trying out different CSS selectors and running our test each time, but a much better, much faster approach would be to try our CSS selectors out directly in our browser. And we can do that simply by right-clicking on the element we'd like to select and going Inspect Element. Now, when you right-click on a page element and select Inspect, what you're asking the browser to do is to inspect or show you the underlying HTML for that element. In this case, our email text box. When you do this, and here we're using Google Chrome, a window will pop up showing HTML on the left, some CSS on the right, and the element you selected highlighted in blue. And the console, or the place where we can try out various CSS selectors, can be reached by tapping this little button here called Console. This is what is called the Developer Console. And it's where we can try out our various CSS selectors to see if we've got the right CSS to select the elements we want to automate on the page. For example, if we wanted to grab all the input fields on the page, we could type CSS selectors that look like this. Here we have 3 input fields. They're all packaged up in something called an array. But you can tell there's 3 of them because we've got input, input, and then the one we ultimately want, input session email. If we wanted to test out that we could grab the password text box, we could select the password field by its type. Input type password. Or if we wanted to test and verify that each of these page elements had an ID associated with them, which is generally better than using an element's generic type, we could select them by their IDs, which we can get by inspecting their HTML. So here would be session email along with session_password. And then finally, we could grab the sign-in button by selecting it by its CSS class, button-primary. And then ultimately, we can put all of these together and use them in the form of a Selenium test, just like this. Here's where we grab our username and password text boxes. This is where we populate them with the username and password. Here is where we grab the sign-in button, and here is where we check to see that we've been redirected to the appropriate web page after clicking sign in along with the correct title. So in summary, developer tools and the developer console are a few handy tools built right into your browser that can aid you tremendously when writing your automated UI tests. View page source, inspect page elements, and then trying out your CSS selectors in your developer console. There's even more we can do with developer tools, but we'll save that for another episode. So until then, happy testing.